We were securely anchored in the back basin of Chippewa Harbor at the beautiful Isle Royale National Park. The remains of an old wooden tug reminded us of the many commercial fishermen who used to live and work here before Chippewa Harbor became part of the park system. It is, without a doubt, our favorite place to stay on the island. The dock and campground are usually very busy, but on this day we had it for ourselves. It seemed everyone else had moved on or gone fishing. If you're not staying at the dock, you will need a decent dinghy or kayak to get to the rugged hiking trails. Of course, exploring the fjord that way is always fun and rewarding. Regardless, the back basin is an amazing anchorage, and Vicky and I stayed for several days. But we had to tear ourselves away for a few hours so we could run Freelance up to the service dock at Rock Harbor.
Point the direction you want me to turn.
Going in and out of the fjords of Isle Royale is best done with a bow lookout. The channels are narrow and the ground rocky. There's little room for error. You really don't want to touch bottom here. Any repair facility is far, far away, so you really need to pay close attention to the Great Lakes Cruising Club's detailed harbor reports about Idal's Superior Way. Once you're out on the lake, they are just 5 short miles from Chippewa to the Middle Island Passage, which is the southern entrance to Rock Harbor. So we didn't bother raising the sails, and we regrettably missed out on some ideal sailing conditions. The breeze was 10 to 15 knots from the northwest. We would have made better time on the sail than with the engine. We soon saw the old and historic Rock Harbor Lighthouse. Its construction was completed in 1856, but it only operated for a few years. Its purpose was to help guide the ships that serviced the island's copper mines. Today, it houses a small museum. The Middle Island Passage is deep, well buoyed, and, in my opinion, easy to get through. Once we were inside, we turned starboard to the northeast, past the small Caribou Island. We now had another 5 miles to go to the marina. Parts of the 13-mile-long Rock Harbor are sheltered by a long string of small islands. One of them is Mud Island, where the National Park has its headquarters, main personnel housing, and maintenance facilities. But I should mention, when most people say Rock Harbor, what they really mean is the park's main entry point and marina at what is also known as Snug Harbor. This time, the marina was virtually empty. It's usually full of sports fishing boats. Regardless, Rock Harbor is the busiest part of the island. Besides the marina, there's a main visitor center, boat rentals, stores, restaurants, campground, housekeeping cabins, and lodging here. Most visitors arrive by ferry, although there's also float plane service. The ferries come from Copper Harbor and Houghton Hancock. With our visit to the service dock completed, we left Rock Harbor's marina at about 12:30 and followed our previous track backwards through the Middle Island Passage and on towards Chippewa Harbor. The conditions were about the same as on the way out, 10 to 15 knots from the northwest. Our timing was good. Soon after clearing the Middle Island Passage, we passed the Ranger 3, which carries passengers and cargo from Houghton to Isle Royale. Vicky and I followed along the shore, gradually heading Freelance southwest, and arrived off Chippewa Harbor's entrance around 2 p.m. The familiar S-curve through the rocky reefs came next, with Vicky, of course, keeping a sharp bow lookout until we were safely into the first basin. Then we passed through the Narrows and slowly headed towards our usual anchorage, where our friends Dwayne and Ma of the power cruiser Innisfree were waiting for us. You can spend a lot of time exploring the Chippewa Harbor area. Just remember to bring sturdy hiking boots. The trails are challenging. Of course, it's always a temptation here to just lounge in your deck or cockpit and enjoy the quiet of Isle Royale's wilderness. all too soon, we were underway again, bound for Windigo. We had to make the 37-mile trip on the engine because the conditions were too light to use our sails. We only had about 6 knots of wind, and the angle was not favorable. We had left the anchorage about 8 a.m. and expected to reach our destination before 3 p.m., weather permitting. While the forecast didn't indicate any developing sailing breeze, the weather wouldn't hinder us either. At 9:37 a.m. we closed the Mirage Island, which has the Isle Royale light. It marks the end of an 8-mile-long line of skerries on the south side of Siskiyou Bay. Our waypoint was set well off to avoid any hazards. Just in case you didn't know, Isle Royale is about 45 miles long and about 9 miles wide. The charts are generally pretty good for a wilderness area. Along our way, we dodged about a dozen sports fishing boats, which were working the deep waters parallel to the shore. Off watch, we spend our time reading books. Following the shore on our GPS track, we passed McCormick Reef and Long Point before turning northwest. We were headed towards the Cumberland Point buoy when we saw a sailboat coming towards us at a distance. It was a familiar island packet, Lily Jean, bound for the Apostles, 90 miles across Lake Superior. We, on the other hand, were getting very close to the end of our day's run from Chippewa Harbor to Windigo. The Cumberland Point buoy was rounded, and we entered the wide Grace Harbor. There are a couple of places where you can pass between Grace Harbor and Washington Harbor. Ricky and I prefer the channel between Booth Island and Washington Island. It used to be buoyed, but it hasn't been for quite some time. It's a little narrow, and you have to, again, keep a bow lookout if you choose to pass this way. However, we don't find it that challenging. You round the end of Booth Island, carefully staying clear of the rocky points that extend under the water before entering the deeper waters of Washington Harbor and turning towards Windigo. While powering into the fjord, one of the commercial float planes from Grand Marais flew over us. But there was very little boat traffic. And there was plenty of dock space for us when we arrived at the Park Service's Windigo pier after being underway for 6 hours and 15 minutes. Vicky and I stayed at Windigo for 2 nights. During the time when we were there, a group of friendly hikers visited us on Freelance. And to be helpful, Vicky cast off the lines of the Voyage 2 when it was leaving. The 65-foot vessel provides passenger service out of Grand Portage, Minnesota, and it makes multiple stops at several NPS docks along the shores of Isle Royale. When we left for Grand Marais, Minnesota, it was a beautiful morning. There was 50 miles to go, and it looked like another disappointing day of light air. We had made travel arrangements with Bob and Judy of the sloop Mirage the night before, and they met up with us as planned. They had spent a comfortable night at the anchorage by Beaver Island. Together we turned into the North Gap, which is the best exit from Washington Harbor when going west towards Grand Marais. There are some rocks. It is where the packet steamer SS America was wrecked in 1928.
The white buoys are right over the wreck of the Americas, which we have looked at many times before coming to Isle Royale.
The story is that the first mate was taking her out when a 183-foot ship hit a reef and slowly settled on the bottom. All aboard got safely off. Today it's one of the island's many historic wrecks that are visited by diving enthusiasts. You do, of course, need a park permit to dive on the wreck. We didn't make any navigational errors in the North Gap and soon set a course for 260 degrees towards Grand Marais. The seas were calm. It again looked like we might have to use our diesel engine instead of our sails to get us to our desired destination. On this cruise, we had been cursed with its disappointing low number of real sailing days. Of course, that didn't keep us from enjoying the wonderful wilderness of Isle Royale or having a great time. But with the diesel engine on, the Rocky Ridge's light and the national park quickly fell below the eastern horizon. A breeze did come up mid-morning. We quickly raised our main and jib topsail. It felt absolutely great to have sail power again. A little before 1 p.m., we rolled up the jib topsail. The fickle wind had failed us. It had shifted dead astern, and we needed a motor to maintain our cruising speed of 6 knots. Vicky was on watch, but except for Mirage, there were no other boats around, and we were tight on our intended track. We were making good progress towards Grand Marais, still expecting to arrive there around mid-afternoon. We were actually going faster than the following wind, so our mainsail wasn't doing us any good. We decided to take it down. Striking Freelance's main is often just a job for one crew member, and of course the autopilot. We are well set up for shorthanded sail on Freelance. Besides, cutters break up the sail areas in smaller sizes, which are easier to handle. It was a very smooth and easy passage, with Hal, the autopilot, holding us on our course. We were slowly closing on Lake Superior's north shore and the charming little town of Grand Marais, Minnesota, not to be confused with Superior's other Grand Marais on the south shore east of Marquette. At 3 p.m., we were right by the eastern end of Artist Point, and soon after made our approach to Grand Marais' White Harbor entrance. It's a place we have come in many times, and in all kinds of weather. We have often tied up on the inside of the outer breakwater. This time we had called ahead and reserved the mooring. Bob and Judy smoothly brought Mirage in after we had secured Freelance. They have a lot of experience with moorings, and it shows, having extensively cruised their winter boat in the Bahamas. It was outstanding being back in Grand Marais, and we all greatly look forward to a real restaurant dinner with friends in the city.